Today we are making a winter classic soup called Galbitang. It is made using beef short ribs with this thick cushion of beautifully marbled meat on top. Galbitang is known for this broth that is clear and light and refreshing taste that is, oh boy, so good for the soul. And I'm also going to show you how to make this same dish but using a more economical choice of beef.
Oh, this is a big bite. Do you think
So
mommy
this
could
is
do
how
it?
we eat it. Ready? Hi everyone, this is Helen and welcome to Modern Pepper. And I want to wish everyone a happy and healthy New Year. 여러분 새해 복 많이 받으세요. 더욱더 건강하세요. Modern Pepper is a Korean cooking channel that offers instructional Korean cooking lessons for authentic Korean recipes as well as Korean fusion recipes. So please do consider subscribing. 맛있는 한식 요리와 한식 퓨전 요리를 여러분들과 영어로 함께 하겠습니다. 구독 버튼 꼭 눌러주세요. To make our galbitang, we need beef short ribs. 찜갈비 or 통갈비. Basically what it looks like is this. It has a thick cushion of this beautifully marbled beef on top that's attached to the ribs. Any big Korean supermarket will always have this thick cushion cut beef short ribs. Now, these guys are expensive. So today we're going to be using about close to 3 pounds, and that yields you to about $45 or under $50. Galbitang is a gourmet dish. It was originally made for kings and queens at the royal court palace, so we call that 궁중 요리. But you could also make this using, a bit more economical choice of beef. You could use any beef that you would normally use to make beef stew and follow the exact recipe for today, and it will come out just as tasty. We call this 소고기 묵국 or 소고기 국밥. I mean, technically, when you add bones to your broth, the broth tastes a bit better, but the taste will be very similar. So this is to remove all the blood gunk. This is unnecessary stuff that we don't want to add to our broth. And right here, that's another blood gunk that we're going to rinse off. In order to make the galbitang broth extra refreshing and so delicious and clean tasting, you need to use Korean radish. It's called mu. Now, for those of you who don't have access to buying Korean radish, you could substitute using Japanese radish called daikon. If you don't have access to that, then you could certainly use these round pink/red radishes that you can find at your local supermarket. Just peel the exterior skin off and you could use that instead. So you need about 3 finger length of your Korean radish right here. Cut it into big chunks. And then when you see a little bit of this brown foamy stuff, just use a fine mesh ladle and scoop it out. Put the lid on it, and then we're going to lower our heat to low medium. The lid stays on, and we'll be back in 45 minutes. So let the soup come to room temperature, and we'll put it in the refrigerator overnight or for 10 to 12 hours. And here's the pot that I made yesterday, and this has been in the refrigerator for overnight, and look at the fat that floated on top. And you need a fine mesh strainer. I mean, the amount of fat that this took off is amazing. But that's why galbitang is so well known for its clarity in broth and light and refreshing taste of that broth stock, because we remove the fat. But for those of you that really savor the taste of beef fat, you could skip this part. You don't need to refrigerate it overnight. But this is how it's traditionally made. You have to skim the fat off on top. And the only way to do that is to let it get cold so all the fat rises to the top. You can't really skim off fat with a fine mesh ladle or anything like that when it's boiling hot. It's just almost impossible. All this stuff I would discard except the Korean radish. The mu, this, I would just eat it as is. The way I like to have it is I like to heat it up in the microwave, mix it up with some warm Korean rice, and add a little bit of gochujang, mix it all up and eat it. So good, so good. Can you tell I love eating? That would be my snack in between making galbitang. That's how I would do it. So now here's a recommendation I want to make. This is a big pot. This will serve about 6 people. For my family, 6 people, this batch is perfect because my kids eat a lot and there's 5 of us. But for those that want to put aside half of this and put it in a storage container and put it in your freezer, that's a great option because you could enjoy galbitang later on, or you could just only save the broth because you could use this broth to enhance the flavor of so many Korean dishes such as kimchi jjigae, 된장찌개, 부대찌개, which is army-based soup. And you could use this broth to make bulgogi 전골, which is basically like Korean shabu shabu but using bulgogi. So if you want to take your Korean stews and soups up a notch next time you make it, this is the broth you want to use. That's why at restaurants everything tastes better because they really do take the time to make this broth. All right, I'm going to put this to the side, and here is DangMyeon noodles. These are sweet potato starch noodles that you use to make the dish called japchae. So these noodles are not called japchae, they're called DangMyeon. When you make galbitang, this is not a must, but usually if you want to have it sort of with the traditional fixings, DangMyeon is always included. Depending on the portion you're making, for one serving, I would measure about the diameter of a quarter coin. And I have a secret that I want to share with you. So this is not a requirement, so you do not have to use this if you don't want to. But If you want to mimic the taste of how it tastes at Korean restaurants and how sort of most Korean moms make it, you want to use sogogi dashida. Sogogi dashida is your beef bouillon powder. If you add this to the broth, another level of super yumminess, okay? So it's an option. Now for all the Korean ingredients that we're using, if you don't have access to a Korean market, you could order them online and I will have those product links in the description box below. Then we need about 2 finger lengths of Korean radish. Slice pretty thin, like so. And 2 scallions. And you want to just whip it a few times because we want to keep the yellow and the white part separate to some degree. And leave it at this. So once this comes to broil, everything's going to happen super fast. Make sure to have everything ready to go. All right, here we go. So you want to make sure that the noodles are submerged under the broth. So you could put the beef on top of it to keep it down. Your heat remains at high, and we're going to let this cook for about 5 to 8 minutes. So I'm going to turn down the heat to low, and we're going to start seasoning. Half a tablespoon of sogogi dashida. Now, you have to taste what you make, right? So take a little bit. This is really hot. 참 맛있습니다. So, salty preference is very personal. You like it saltier, add more salt. But for me, the amount of salt we added and then the beef dashida we added is perfectly balanced. Okay, so here's the thing about the DangMyeon noodles, these potato starch noodles. These need to come out super fast. These, if you let it sit in the broth, it will get bloated and then it will suck up all the broth, or a good portion of it. And I'm just putting mine in the strainer, as you can see right here. These guys, they're very sensitive. Sensitive kind of noodles. If it stays in here a little too long, not only will it get bloated and suck up all the broth, but it'll break down so fast that you won't even be able to pick it up with anything. It'll just literally fall apart and then make your broth taste really messy and look messy. So now onto our egg. So you want to just whip it a few times so that the yellow and the white part are still separate. And here's another tip I'm going to share with you. We're going to turn the heat back on at high. And when you pour this, don't pour around the pot, because if you do that, it'll turn into egg drop soup, and that's not our goal here. We're trying to have poached egg in clusters, and that's so good, and that's how they do it at restaurants. So this is restaurant style, actually. You want to pour it in about a distance of 45 inches. Like that. Then we're going to add our scallions now and just give it a minute, and this is ready. You see the eggs rising to the top in clusters? That's what we want. Now it's time to taste our 갈비탕.
Yeah.
And our famous mukbanger James is here to help us taste our galbitang. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. All right, let's first start with the broth. The broth is the key to galbitang and how awesome it is. It is so light in taste. It's clean. And then it has this really delicious beef broth taste too. What do you think?
Looks really good.
Really good? All right. The next thing to eat right away is the DangMyeon noodles, right? This stuff gets bloated real fast, as I mentioned earlier. So this is how we eat it. Ready? I'm going to go first. So good. So good. So in Korean culture, it is absolutely okay to slurp when you're eating noodles, okay? This is so good. I'm gonna have the rest of mine.
Okay.
The DangMyeon noodles, what do you think?
It's yummy, slippery, and delicious.
I know. It's so yummy. Okay. All right, now we have to eat the galbi, the delicious beef, right?
Ooh.
So it's up to you. You want to pick it up and start going at it? I mean, James, you could, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a plate and I'm going to cut these guys. So when it comes to galbitang, you do want to cook it so that it's soft, but you do not want to overcook it that it's literally falling apart. You want the beef to still have some sort of cushiony bite when you eat into it. But boy, oh boy, does this look good or does this look good? Let me cut yours too. So after you cut it, you could take this part and start gnawing at it. Here, you could do it. You tell me how good it is. How is it?
It's juicy, and the meat falls right off the bone.
Yeah. Cheers! The meat is soft and it's so clean tasting, and it also has this like natural sweetness from the beef. Oh, it's really yummy. I want to also taste the radish. Do you love radish or not really? You could
love it.
You do. He's the only one. My other two boys are like radish. They're like, ugh. But James likes it. The radish, we didn't overcook it because we added at the end, so it still has a little bit of this like crunchy bite. Korean radish 무 is a must when you make galbitang. This is basically 국밥. Kuk means soup or broth, and pap means rice, and you add it together. Mix it up. This is how you're supposed to eat it, but you could eat it separately if you want to. Okay, now let's taste the rice, and I'm having it with some noodles. Korean rice is so good, right? Next bite, let's add the gogi with the egg and scallion. Wow. Cheers.
No, this is a big bite.
Do you think mommy could do it? I'm gonna try. Two bites. Very good, right?
Yeah.
So there's a way to make this spicy too, because I know some people are like, can you make it spicy? Yes, you can. I have a recipe I did. It's called 다대기. Daegi is basically like a spicy condiment that you add to your soups like 갈비탕, 곰탕, 설렁탕, and also 물냉면. They don't usually put this out at the restaurant, so you have to ask the wait staff nicely, can I please have some daegi? And they'll bring it out for you. But I have a recipe for that, so you could check it out. Or 깍두기. And 깍두기 is pickled Korean 무. It's like kimchi, but it's not called kimchi. It's called 깍두기. This is a must when you have 갈비탕, 곰탕, 설렁탕. You want to dunk it in here and you shake it and all the spices kind of blend in with the broth. Talk about major happiness. Go ahead, you can start eating. So the next video is on how to make 깍두기. So if you did not subscribe, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be alerted when I post this. But 깍두기 is also super easy to make. So much easier than making Napa cabbage kimchi. I'm gonna cut this up and I'm gonna make a perfect bite with everything on it. Bon appetit, everyone. I think adding the 깍두기 just took it to another level. This just like made it so good, right? What do you think?
Tastes awesome.
It tastes awesome. You
Yeah.
said awesome. So we're gonna taste the broth now that we added the 깍두기 and added the spicy taste to it. Oh, so good. So good. I don't know why I'm whispering. It just adds another dimension. It's like slight spiciness. I want to thank everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed watching today's video, I would greatly appreciate it if you would click on that thumbs up icon. And for those of you that did not subscribe yet, please do click on that subscribe button so we can make more Korean dishes together. 여러분 오늘 재밌게 보셨으면 꼭 좋아하는 버튼 눌러주세요. 감사합니다. Alright folks, I will see you in one of these videos right here.